But first up, as always, it is not to be skipped, which today doubles as a flashback and a crazy one. Here we go. In honor of March Madness, I'm going to open with my Larry Bird at the Final Four story with a wild and bizarre Dallas Cowboy backdrop that I'll get to. I'm about to tell you why I made the biggest mistake of my career and what it ultimately taught me about how you have to trust yourself in live, unscripted, go for the throat debate. I will be the first to admit I barely watched the Larry Bird game against DePaul. Larry Bird went 35, 16, and 9 in that game, made 16 of 19 shots. 16 of 19? I barely watched. And a freshman for DePaul named Mark Aguirre, whom I got to know very well in Dallas, did have the last shot in that game. Little long, bounced high off the rim. Larry Bird wound up with the rebound and the victory, barely. That would have been a game winner. So I'm not that impressed. They probably should have lost to DePaul, but they didn't. And by the way, the irony of that story is Mark Aguirre used to tell me as a Maverick, you can't believe what Larry Bird does to me. He just terrorizes me. He trash talks me like nobody's ever trash talked me. He leans over into my ear and whispers stuff I can't even repeat to you. And he backs it up. I'm going to do this to you. And he does it. This is Mark Aguirre, who was an all-star. He was heart and soul of those Dallas Mavericks that got all the way to Game 7 against Magic at the Fabulous Forum. In that game, Magic took Roy Tarpley, who was virtually unstoppable at 7 feet tall, out of Michigan, and just squelched him in the fourth quarter. Magic took him and took him out of the game. Mark Aguirre shriveled and shrank in the fourth quarter, and that was that. Magic goes on to yet another NBA Finals. But the point of that evening was I barely watched Larry Bird, and of course, I adjourned to Gil's hospitality suite after I finished writing over in the team headquarters hotel. This is in Salt Lake City, by the way. Love Salt Lake. Beautiful town, my first time there at that point in 79. And I'm hanging and I'm talking to coaches and I'm doing this and I'm seeing that and I'm enjoying the hors d'oeuvres. Later in the evening, Gil Brandt pulls me aside and he says, listen, I got something for you. I've been talking to these coaches all day long, all the biggest coaches in college basketball. And they all tell me that Larry Bird will not be a star in the NBA because he is, and this was the quote, he's too slow-footed, said Gil Brandt to me. Too slow-footed, okay? And he said, a few of the coaches believe he won't even make it in the NBA because he's too, quote-unquote, slow-footed. Okay. Well, again, I barely watch the guy. I'm all Magic all the time. And I said, okay. And I go back to my room, and I think about it. I sleep on it, and I get up Sunday. I've got to write for Monday's paper. Finals, obviously, Monday evening. And I wrote it. And I said, you know, I couched it as many coaches here believe that Larry Bird will not make it in the NBA, or at least won't be a star in the NBA because he's too, and I used the quote, slow-footed. I trusted Gil Brandt. He wasn't going to lie to me. He wasn't going to exaggerate. I believe that those coaches told him just that. Now, is that a product in part of what I might call reverse racism of the day, sort of anti-white bias, because by 1980, nobody thought that any white kid was going to become an NBA superstar. Well, you know and I know, one did. And we've never seen anything like that one since in the way of white superstar. But I wrote it, stuck by it, felt pretty good about it on Monday night when, predictably, Magic and Gregory Kelser had their way with Larry and the Sycamores. It really wasn't close. Magic was the star of the night and the star of the draft. And back I went to Dallas, Texas as a young gun columnist on the rise. And I had already scheduled a speaking appearance because I was trying to make my way in Dallas at a local high school. It's called Richardson Berkner High School. And I show up. This was on Saturday evening. It was sort of a banquet that I was going to speak at the end of. And the organizer says to me, you better be ready because they are riled up at you over your Larry Bird column. They are? Really? Okay. I'll be ready. So I spoke for a while in the Cowboys, spoke for a while in the Dallas Morning News, what we planned to do. And then I opened it up for questions, and I got hit right between the eyes by an angry mob. They barraged me with questions. How dare you? How could you? And it became very clear to me that Larry Bird did indeed represent to these folks the great white hope. Not white hype, white hope. Those folks believed in Larry Bird, and they believed he was going to be not just a star, but a big star in the National Basketball Association. And were they ever right? I eventually learned that you have to see for yourself in my position. You have to trust your own instincts. You have to learn in my job that coaches constantly get fired because a lot of them don't know as much as I know. And that's the God's truth. That's the one thing I can tell you that I will take to my grave. A lot of them don't know more than I know. In the end, you have to be the judge. You have to listen to the little voice in your head. You have to watch. You have to eye test. And you have to believe in you. Now, I never, ever listen to anybody else when it comes to can he play or not play. I hope you enjoyed that video. You ready for more? Make sure you click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from the Skip Bayless Show. And don't forget to check out the full episode of the show wherever you get your podcasts by clicking the link in the description.